So I want to talk with you today about something I don't think that we're all completely honest about. When we talk about getting older, specifically into your late 40s or 50, the conversation is usually about two things. Our bodies slowing down, those aches and pains that you deal with that are more and more prevalent with each task and each day, or those technical difficulties of planning for retirement. We talk a lot about the physical stuff, the joints that ache, the sore back, how your hair is turning gray, or maybe you've got some gray showing up in your beard. And that feeling that time is moving much faster than it ever has. But there's also the psychological side to getting older that nobody prepares you for. It's not really about the gray hair or the aches and pains. It's about that collision with time. It's a moment where your lifelong expectations finally collide with the actual reality of your life that you're living. As I've gotten older, I think about this more and more. And I think about how we're all just trading daylight. We only have so much of it left. And suddenly that currency of our time feels a lot more expensive than it did at 25. If you aren't ready for that shift, it can definitely feel like a crisis. But I think it might actually be the most important invitation you'll ever receive. There's a ghost that haunts a lot of guys my age. It's the ghost of that person you thought you'd be by now. Think back to when you were 25. You had this grand vision, this hazy golden image of your future self. That version of you was this confident, strong individual that had a career that felt like a calling, that had not just a paycheck, but a purpose. That guy had finances locked down and moved through the world with a sense of certainty. But then all of a sudden you blink and you're 49. You realize that adult version of you never actually showed up to take the wheel. You're still the same guy up here, just with way more responsibilities, way more debt, and a few more wrinkles and scars. And that realization can mess with your head. Because now there's this quiet, relentless pressure. It's the feeling that you're running out of time to satisfy that 25-year-old's dreams. You look at your life and you feel like you missed a turn somewhere. You start wondering, is this it? Did I settle too soon? Did I trade my best daylight for a version of success that doesn't actually matter? We spend so much time comparing our internal mess to everyone else's external polish. We're reminded of it every time that we log on to, you name the social media. Everybody posts their highlight reel and pretends like everything is perfect. We assume our neighbors and colleagues have reached that settled place, that place that we're longing to be. We're still trying to figure it out. We're trying to figure out if we're doing everything right still. Based on what you're seeing, on the surface, everybody else has it figured out and you don't. But I'm here to tell you, we all know in the back of our heads that we're all haunted with the same ghost. I want to get specific about the 9 to 5 for a second, because that's where the trade of our time and daylight is the most obvious. So, like most of us, I've spent the majority of my life in that world. Started working when I was 14 years old, and I've never stopped. I know what it's like to sit under those fluorescent lights, staring at that spreadsheet or report, that full inbox, those pinging Teams messages, and feel like your soul is slowly being pulverized into dust. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from that monotony. It's the commute that you could do in your sleep. It's that moment around 3 p.m. on a Tuesday when you look at the clock and you realize that you've been chained to this desk for as long as you can remember. You wonder where the years went and basically give up hope for where the remaining years are going to be. We're told that this is the price of stability, that you put in the time and in the end you get the reward. I am incredibly grateful for what my job provides. I have a happy marriage and I have wonderful children and I have a stable environment that I live in. By traditional metrics, I've won the lottery, that I have that success that everybody hopes for. But there's a quiet guilt that comes along with that gratitude. You feel like you aren't even allowed to want more. You feel like wanting to be creative or wanting to start something new at this age is somehow ungrateful for the life that you've already built. So you suppress it and you push it down and you ignore it. You just tell yourself that you should be happy for what you have. But I realized you can be grateful for that life that you've built and still be hungry for growth. You can love your family and still feel like there's a part of you that hasn't been allowed to speak yet. Staying chained to that desk doesn't mean that you've necessarily failed. It just means that you've been a provider. You've helped with achieving that success for your family. But ignoring that becoming part of yourself, that's where the real burnout begins. You don't have to quit your life to start your journey necessarily. You just have to be honest about the fact that the desk isn't the whole story. So, the biggest lie about getting older is the idea of reaching a finish line. Society sets up these markers for you. You go to school, you go to college, you graduate from college, you get that job, you get married, you buy that house, you have children, and you raise the kids and save for retirement. We're taught that life is this uphill climb, and once we get to the top of that mountain, we can rest. We build that up in our minds for our entire adult lives. We've seen what our parents and our grandparents did throughout their lives and careers, and we hope for a similar type of success. But what happens when you get to the top of that mountain that you've climbed and realize that you're on a plateau and that there's still another mountain range miles ahead of you? Or what happens when you get to the top of that mountain and you realize that the one that you were supposed to be climbing was 25 miles to your east or west? At 49, that finish line or that top of the mountain starts to look a lot like that. If you believe you're supposed to be finished by now, then any change or desire to change feels like a failure. It feels like you're breaking the rules. But the truth that nobody tells you is that there truly is no finish line. Not until it's all over. Getting older isn't really about finding all of the answers, because nobody knows all of the answers. It's really about finally learning how to live with all of the questions. It's about being okay with the fact that your life doesn't look like the 25-year-old version of that you thought you'd become. It doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that you're living in reality instead of that fantasy that the 25-year-old built up in their head. That weight we feel, that stuck feeling that we feel, it usually comes from our refusal to grieve the life that we thought we'd have, so we can finally start living the ones that we actually do have. I'm in the same situation. I haven't figured out yet how to grieve that life that I built up in my head. But when you stop fighting the reality of where you are, you suddenly have more energy to actually move forward. If you're feeling that pressure today, that quiet, unrelenting pressure, that it's too late or you're too behind to ever get caught up, I want you to take a breath and realize that the clock is not your enemy. The expectations that you build up in your head are. The truth that people don't tell you and that you don't learn until your late 40s is that that time can be the most honest years of your life. Sometimes painfully honest. You've lived long enough now to know that Not everything works. What you plan doesn't work all the time. And you've made enough mistakes to know that you can survive them and that life will go on. This isn't about fixing a broken life. It's about being honest about the process that we're all in. It's about saying, I'm 49 years old and I don't have it all figured out. And that's okay. There is some freedom in saying that out loud. Once you stop pretending, and again, I haven't figured out necessarily how to stop pretending, but I'm telling myself this to hopefully move forward. But once you stop pretending that you're finished, that it's all over, you can actually start growing again. I'm done trading my daylight for things that don't matter. I'm learning how to spend my daylight on things that do matter. I'm still figuring things out. And I know you are too. So I appreciate you trading some of your daylight with me today. I'll see you in the next video.